So I thought I'd take a minute just to show you how easy it is to program a Luna or any other Audac device from within Audac Touch, which is the main control platform for all Audac enabled equipment. So from Audac Touch's menu, you have these three bars across the top left. Clicking on that will give you the device menu. I'm not logged into an account currently. Once you're logged into an account, you'll see other menu items here, but for today's purposes, this is the device menu, which presents us with two options, saved and discovery. So generally speaking, when you're attaching a device for the first time, you'll be in discovery mode, and the system will pull across the network for all devices that are on the network. And as you can see from our example, we have a number of devices on our network, but for today's purposes, I'm going to just focus on the Luna. So I can filter by typing in at the top under the search bar for simple Luna devices. And in this case, it'll bring up the single Luna that I'm trying to communicate with. You can see and confirm that the IP address is correct. You can also pull down an external device menu and see some other information. Clicking the add symbol will add it from the Discover tab to a Save tab. And just confirming the data is correct, hit Save. And now under our Saved tab, we'll see the Luna available. So to work with and configure the device, if you simply click on it in the saved list, it brings up a simplified overview control screen, which shows us all of our zones, what inputs are set to a zone, and some level controls, as well as a speaker icon, which actually is a mute button as well. That is not where the programming is done. The programming is done inside the settings menu. So once you're in the settings menu, another menu bar on the left opens up. Give you some other additional settings from the overview, which is where we currently are. We can look at GPIO control status for both GPI and GPO, so we can set a device to an input or an output. This is where the voice files are stored, and we can change and modify those and set the file path and give them a priority, and the number of times they're played back or repeated. This is where the event handler is. So this is the schedule and automation section, which you'll be using for programming. So we'll get into that later, but basically you want to add a scheduled event, you just click the add symbol. The device settings menu will give you all of the information we saw on the previous screen and the ability to update firmware, change the device name, short and full name, as well as set a unique device address. So if we had a system with multiple Lunas, each Luna would need its own specific device address, and we can change that here. We can also set the time zone that the device is located in. This will require a service connection to a internet time provider for the scheduler to work properly. So make sure that if your installs have a time server built in. We can change the device network settings from DHCP to static and put in our appropriate criteria, and we can set a lock PIN code on that as well. So there is a default PIN code, which is 0000, but that can be changed. Some other information we can see across the top is the DSP usage. There is 2 DSPs inside the Luna, 1 and 2, and you can see how much of each one is being used, as well as the Linux processing. And we can see that the device is connected. So that means I'm connected in real time. From here, I can also switch back to control, which is the previous screen where we had a simplified overview control screen. And to get back, click on settings. In the overview tab is where we'll spend most of our time programming and configuring the device. And by default, it's set to show enabled. So it's not showing us all inputs, zones, and outputs. It's just showing us the ones we've made active. And the indication that something is active is this checkbox right here. So you can see that these inputs and outputs and zones are made active. If I flip to show all, now I have an indication that shows me all of these inputs, outputs, and zones. And if I want to make a device or an input or a zone active, I can simply add a checkbox. And then when I go back to show enabled, it now adds that to the show enabled. It's laid out for you in a very strategic, logical fashion with inputs on the left, zones in the middle, and outputs on the right. To configure a device section, use the gear icon, which brings up this little menu. From here, I can toggle between all of my inputs to configure them, and I can get into all of my processing for each input. So for example, we'll work with mic number 1. Gear icon will always give you settings. From within this section, I can turn phantom power on and off for the input. I can change the name and I give it a short name, which is what the zone mixing section requires, as well as what will display on the control panels, on the touchscreen and on the dashboards that you're going to create. And then hit submit. And now the names are changed to reflect. I can take this particular input, line number 1, or in this case our test input, and I can route it to a zone. Right now it's currently routed to a zone called dining room, but I can delete that, in which case now I have no zones mapped, or I can map multiple zones. So there's a couple of ways that you can do on any of the functions here. We can do this on an input level, or we can go to it on the zone level. So I can go to a zone and I can say these inputs are available in the zone, or I can go to an input and say this input is available in the following zones. From within this menu, I also have access to my gain control. For this particular input, I have a preset gain level as well as a gain slider, and I have an automatic gain control that I can turn on or off. I have a noise gate down here as well that I can turn on. Again, by default, everything is in the design. You just need to decide which you want to make active. Following along the signal path, I have a high and low pass filter, 7-band parametric EQ, which again is off by default, but I can turn it on and I can change the view, showing me all of the EQ steps. I have an anti-feedback device available for every input and a volume slider, delay compensation, and a trigger level. At what level is this input triggered? And the same is available for all the inputs. As I scroll across the top, our input changes. And I can do the same for my Dante inputs, my operating system inputs, as well as the test signal. So that's the input configuration. To go back to the overview, it's this top left corner. From there, I can go into the zone configuration. Currently, we're seeing 8 zones, but as we noted before, if I go show all, I can make additional zones up to 32 mono or 16 stereo zones active. Configure a zone, same gear control icon. And again, I have the zones across the top. And using your mouse wheel will move you between zones. For example, on zone 1, which is currently labeled DNG, a short name for dining room, I can change the full name and I can give it a new short name and submit. It will change the name here. Again, the short name is what's displayed on the control panel on the dashboard for the end user. So in this particular case, in zone 1, which we've renamed test, we can see which inputs are mapped to that zone. And in this case, it's line 4, line 3, and a test input. I can choose to add additional inputs to that zone, and they'll show up. Or I can delete individual zone inputs. Or I can delete all. And I can map whichever inputs I want. Also on the zone control tab, I have the ability to say, for zone 1, what's the physical output connection? And by default, zone 1 outputs to line output 1, the analog line output. But I can change that. I can say, I want that to be part of Dante at 1. So as you can see, you can take a zone and map it to multiple different output locations. I have a mixer tab, which shows me which inputs and the level control are active for this particular zone. So if I was to go back to my configuration and add additional inputs and go back into my mixer tab, you'll now see different inputs that we've assigned to the zone. I have a test source that I can turn on and off. Talk over function and where the source is coming from, again, off by default. I have a zone volume control, which is what you'll usually be giving your customer for control over the zone level. And I have a paging system input for that zone. This is designed to work with the NPM 200 Dante enabled paging microphone, which we'll get into on a later video, but it has a dedicated paging bus and multi-zone paging capability. We can add specific voice files to a zone and have them triggered within the zone by the touchscreen on the dashboard. And 4 levels of priority for the zone and what's triggering them. Again, off by default. Wavetune is what they're referring to as their 7-band fully parametric EQ. And a compressor on the zone. That's the zone processing. To get back to the overview, again, it's that overview button. We now come to the output section. And if I click the gear control icon, right now it's seeing line output 1 through 8. Again, I can make additional Dante outputs active. Configure an output, control icon. We can see right here the mapping for line output number 1. It's mapped to this particular zone, which we've identified as zone 1. When an input zone is used for an output, it's removed from the list. And an output can only be tied to one zone. So I can't add a second zone. You can change the name of the physical output and give it a short name. I have a gain for my output high and low pass filters, 12 bands of fully parametric EQ that I can apply. I can also apply presets, which are FIR filters for various Audac products. You can also build your own custom. I have, again, delay on the output, phased inversion, simple on off, and an output limiter, off by default. That is the overview programming Luna.